I woke up to find our campfire burning again. I'd put it out completely before bed, soaked the ashes, stirred the coals, but someone had rebuilt it perfectly while we slept. I'm Marcus. Last weekend, my girlfriend, Sarah, and I hiked 6 miles to backcountry site 113 near Ramsey Cascades. We reached the site before dark, cooked a quick dinner, and made a small fire. I always put fires out the right way. Water, stir, water again, hand over the coals until there's no heat. At 10 p.m., we climbed into the tent. Creek noise, wind in the trees, quiet. At dawn, I heard crackling. The fire was back, not embers, a neat teepee of fresh wood burning clean and bright. 3 logs were missing from our stack. The ring was raked smooth, like someone swept it. Sarah sat up. "You put it out." "I did." I checked the ground. In soft dirt, I saw bare footprints. Large, toes clear. They made a slow circle around the pit and stopped near our tent. I pressed a finger into one print. It felt warm. We spent the day at the falls, but I kept looking into the trees. Twice I thought I saw someone keeping pace 100 yards off, just a shape. When I looked hard, nothing. That evening, I set a test. I scattered every ash from the ring. I carried the remaining wood 50 yards into brush. I poured a thin ring of flour around the pit. I set my phone on time-lapse, aimed straight at the fire. We went to bed. At 2:11 a.m., the tent wall pressed in over my face. A hand, slow, firm. I hit it through the fabric. Soft steps moved away over leaves. No voice, no light. First light, the flower ring showed a clean arc where a foot crossed. The pit was rebuilt again. 2 tidy rings, a small windbreak made from pine boughs. A page lay folded by the stones. Neat handwriting. Firebed too thin last night. Add fuel earlier. Subject sleep 10:04 to 4:56. Mail checks twice. Under it, a list. Quote, repack bear can, misaligned mid. Change guidelines to taut line hitch. Move stove farther from heat. I checked. The bear can was latched better than I left it. The guy lines were retied. The stove sat 3 feet farther away. Sarah lifted a rock near the tent and found another page. Relocate to optimal pad tonight. Relocate. As a small creator with limited resources, your support helps me investigate and bring you more allegedly true stories like this one. If you want to hear what happened next, please tap follow. We decided to leave at first light, but we took short naps in shifts. I kept the phone recording. Near dawn, something tugged my ankle from the door side of the tent. One firm pull like a test. I kicked and shouted. Brush settled. The creek hissed on. We stepped out and froze. Our tent had moved. Not far, maybe 15 feet, but it was turned to face the creek. Stakes reset, vestibule zipped square. Our boots were lined up heel to toe beside a swept path of needles leading to the water. The ring looked like a park demo. Clean. Perfect. I checked the time lapse. At 12:43, the frame went black. When it came back, the camp was already improved. As if someone lifted the phone, made changes, and set it down again. The last second showed the lens tilt toward the tent door, close enough to see the zipper teeth. We packed fast. On the trail, a small cairn, 3 stones, tipped over right as we walked past, like a finger pushed it from the trees. It felt like a nudge. Go. At the ranger station, the ranger's face changed when I said Site 113 and rebuilt fire. He said, "You're the 3rd report this season. There's a man living rough. He thinks he's a caretaker. He started with fire safety. Now he moves whole camps while people sleep. Anyone hurt? A couple woke in a different spot last month. Better shelter, food replaced. Their car is still at the trailhead. We found some of their gear folded under a lean-to." He showed photos. Clean rings, broomed soil, little notes in the same hand. Quote, Subjects resist improvements. Will guide to winter site. Back home, I watched the last frames again. A shadow crosses the lens. Not a face. The curve of a bare shoulder, ash-dusted, close enough to fog the glass. If you wake to work you didn't do, fire rebuilt, lines retied, things better. Don't thank anyone. Pack. Leave. People who fix your camp without asking may decide to fix you next. If your camp changes overnight, treat it as a red flag. Hike to a ranger station or a busy campground in daylight. Next up, the buried sleeper.
My tent tried to kill me last night, but tents don't act on their own. I'm Alex, and my solo camping trip to Jasper turned into a fight for survival against my own equipment. I'd hiked 10 miles to Backcountry Site 47 Thursday afternoon, remote location near Moline Lake, perfect for wildlife photography. While setting up my orange tent, I met my only neighbor, a friendly guy named Tom, camping about 200 yards away. Tom wandered over as I struggled with my tent stakes. He offered to help, mentioning he'd been camping here for weeks and knew all the tricks for dealing with the rocky soil. Tom was incredibly helpful. He showed me the best spot for my tent, helped secure my guy lines, even suggested where to hang my food to avoid bears. Thursday evening, Tom invited me to share his campfire. We talked about hiking, photography, outdoor gear. Tom knew everything about wilderness survival, which plants were edible, how to purify water, how to signal for rescue. He seemed like the perfect camping neighbor. Friday morning, I woke up to a strange smell inside my tent. Chemical odor, like cleaning products or industrial solvents. My tent fabric felt different too. Stiffer, like it had been treated with something overnight. When I asked Tom about the smell, he suggested it might be pine sap from the trees above, but we weren't camped under any pine trees. Friday's photography hike went well. I captured amazing shots of elk and mountain scenery, but when I returned to camp, my tent had been moved. Not dramatically, just rotated about 30 degrees to face a different direction. Tom explained that afternoon winds could shift lightweight tents, but my tent was a 4-season model anchored with 8 stakes. Wind doesn't move tents like that. Friday evening, Tom offered to weatherproof my tent with special treatment. He pulled out a spray bottle filled with clear liquid, claiming it would make my tent completely waterproof and wind-resistant. Tom sprayed the entire exterior while explaining the chemical composition and benefits. The treatment smelled like the same industrial odor I'd noticed that morning. Friday night, I woke up around 2 a.m. feeling dizzy and nauseous. The air inside my tent was thick and hard to breathe, like the oxygen was being displaced by something else. I unzipped the door for fresh air, but the chemical smell was stronger outside than inside. Tom's campfire was still burning bright, even though he'd gone to bed hours earlier. Saturday morning, Tom asked detailed questions about my health. Had I slept well, any breathing problems, headaches, or nausea? Like he was monitoring my condition. When I mentioned feeling sick during the night, Tom suggested it might be altitude adjustment. But we were only at 5,000 feet elevation. I'd camped much higher without problems. Saturday afternoon, Tom offered to help me pack my gear more efficiently. He spent an hour reorganizing my backpack, explaining better weight distribution and storage techniques. But while handling my equipment, Tom seemed more interested in my emergency supplies, how much food I carried, my water purification tablets, my first aid kit contents. Information that would matter if someone was planning to keep me isolated for extended periods. Saturday evening, Tom suggested we camp closer together for safety. He helped me move my tent within 20 feet of his setup, claiming bears were more active at night and we'd be safer in proximity. But moving closer put my tent directly downwind from Tom's constant campfire. That night, the chemical smell was overwhelming. I woke up multiple times with severe headaches and difficulty breathing. Each time, Tom's fire was burning perfectly, despite no one tending it. Around 4 a.m., I stumbled outside for fresh air and discovered something terrifying. Tom's tent was empty. His sleeping bag was laid out like someone had been sleeping there, but no one was inside. Tom was nowhere in the campsite. But his fire continued burning bright, and the chemical smell kept getting stronger. Your fellow horror fans are the reason these stories reach more people. Please hit that like button. It helps other listeners discover these allegedly true accounts when the algorithm favors engaged audiences. I searched Tom's abandoned campsite and found equipment I hadn't seen before. Multiple spray bottles with industrial labels, chemical compounds designed for fumigation and pest control. A notebook filled with detailed observations about my daily routines, sleep patterns, and physical reactions to various substances. Tom had been experimenting on me. I packed my gear immediately, but the chemical exposure had left me weak and disoriented. During my hike out, I kept getting lost on trails I'd walked the day before. My vision was blurry, coordination was off. The chemicals Tom had been spraying were affecting my nervous system. I made it to the trailhead after 12 hours of confused hiking. Rangers called paramedics immediately when they saw my condition. Blood tests showed significant exposure to industrial solvents and sedatives. These chemicals can cause hallucinations, memory loss, and complete disorientation, the doctor explained. Someone was slowly poisoning you. Rangers found Tom's real campsite deeper in the wilderness. He'd been living there for months, targeting solo hikers with his helpful neighbor routine. His camp contained journals documenting experiments on dozens of hikers. He'd been testing various chemical combinations to find the perfect formula for incapacitating people without killing them. Tom was arrested 2 weeks later at a different park, trying his helpful neighbor routine on a group of college students. I recovered completely, but the experience changed how I interact with overly helpful strangers in the wilderness. Real camping neighbors offer basic assistance, not complete campsite management. And legitimate outdoor enthusiasts don't carry industrial chemicals or take detailed notes about your personal habits. If someone insists on treating your gear with special products or asks too many questions about your health and routines, decline politely and maintain distance. That helpful neighbor wasn't trying to improve my camping experience. He was testing how much chemical exposure I could survive. Story 3 reveals how the forest itself can become your worst enemy.
My GPS says I'm still on the marked trail, but I've been walking in perfect circles for 9 hours. I'm Rachel, and yesterday's solo hike in the Blue Mountains became a geographical nightmare that nearly cost me my life. I'd planned a simple day hike, 6-foot track from Katoomba to Jenolan Caves, 18 kilometers of well-marked trail I'd completed twice before. Perfect weather Friday morning. I started at 7 a.m. with full water, energy bars, and emergency gear. The first 5 kilometers went exactly as expected. Familiar landmarks, proper trail markers, other hikers heading both directions. Around 10 a.m., I reached what should have been the halfway point, But instead of the expected scenic lookout, I found a trail junction that wasn't on my map. 3 paths branched off from where I stood. None were marked with signs. My GPS showed I was still on the main 6-foot track, but clearly I was somewhere else. I chose the middle path, figuring it would reconnect with the main trail. 2 hours later, I reached the exact same unmarked junction. That was impossible. I'd been hiking steadily forward on a straight path. I tried the left branch this time, marking trees with my knife to track my progress. 3 hours of hiking brought me back to the same junction. My knife marks were there on the trees, proving I'd completed a perfect circle. But my GPS insisted I was making steady progress toward Jenolan Caves. By 3 p.m., I was seriously worried. I'd been hiking for 8 hours, but covered no actual distance. I tried following my GPS coordinates exactly, ignoring the visible trails. This led me through dense bush for 2 hours until I emerged at the same unmarked junction. My phone showed I'd hiked 12 kilometers, but I was standing in the same spot. That's when I noticed something terrifying about the trees around the junction. The bark patterns were identical. Not similar, exactly the same. Like someone had planted the same tree in multiple locations. I examined them closer. Same branching patterns, same knots in the wood, same insect damage. Physically impossible unless these were the same trees. But that would mean the forest was somehow folding in on itself. Friday evening, I decided to stay put and camp at the junction. Better to be stationary than walk in circles all night. I set up my emergency bivvy shelter and ate energy bars for dinner. Around midnight, I heard something that made my blood freeze. My own voice calling for help in the distance. But I was sitting right here. How could I hear myself calling from somewhere else? The voice got closer. "Hello? Is anyone there? I'm lost." That was definitely my voice, my exact pronunciation, my panic level. I called back. "I'm here. Where are you?" My own voice responded. "I can hear you, but I can't see you. Keep talking." This continued for hours, my voice calling from different directions, sometimes close, sometimes distant, but I never saw another person. Saturday morning, I tried a new strategy. Instead of following trails, I'd hike due north, using only my compass. 6 hours of bushwhacking through thick forest brought me to a clearing. The same unmarked junction, same 3 paths, same identical trees. But now there were signs of other people. Food wrappers scattered around, empty water bottles, and something that made my heart stop. My own backpack sitting beside the trail. The same pack I was currently wearing. I was carrying my backpack, but an identical pack with all my gear was sitting on the ground. I opened both packs, exactly the same contents. Same energy bars, same first aid kit, same emergency whistle. Everything duplicated perfectly. Saturday afternoon, I encountered other hikers who seemed familiar. A woman matching my exact description walked past, heading down the left trail. She was wearing my clothes, carrying my gear, even had my distinctive hiking boots. But I was standing right there. When I called out to her, she turned around. She had my face, my exact features, down to the small scar on my chin from a childhood accident. The other me looked confused when she saw me. We stared at each other for a long moment, then she continued down the trail like nothing had happened. Saturday evening, I met myself again. This time, I was sitting by a small campfire cooking the same energy bars I had in my pack. The other me looked up when I approached. She asked if I was lost too. I was talking to myself, having a conversation with another version of me who was trapped in the same impossible loop. Saturday night, I camped with myself. We compared experiences. She'd been hiking the same circle for 3 days, encountering other versions of herself regularly. "How many of us are there?" I asked. She replied, "I've seen at least 6, maybe more." Sunday morning, I decided to test something. Instead of hiking any trail, I'd climb straight up the steepest slope until I reached higher ground. 4 hours of rock climbing brought me to a ridge overlooking the area. From above, I could see the truth. The trail junction wasn't a junction at all. It was the center of a perfect spiral carved into the forest. All 3 paths curved in identical circles, designed to bring hikers back to the starting point. But here's what terrified me most. I could see multiple versions of me hiking different sections of the spiral. At least 8 identical figures, all wearing my clothes, all trapped in the same endless loop. I climbed higher, following the ridge toward what my map showed as the main 6-foot track. 2 hours later, I reached the real trail and hiked straight to Jenolan Caves. At the visitor center, I reported everything to park rangers. They showed me incident reports from other solo hikers. Same experience. GPS malfunction, circular trails, encountering duplicate versions of themselves. "We've closed that section indefinitely," the ranger said. "Something about the geological formation affects navigation equipment and creates optical illusions." But I know what I saw wasn't illusions. Multiple versions of me are still trapped in that spiral, hiking endlessly in circles. If your GPS shows steady progress, but landmarks look familiar, stop immediately and backtrack to the last confirmed location. Some wilderness areas don't follow normal geographical rules. The forest can trap you in loops where every path leads back to the beginning, and escaping requires abandoning all the navigation tools you trust. That wrong path wasn't a mistake. It was designed to collect solo hikers and keep them walking forever. My survival teacher watched me get sick and wrote down the times. I'm Tom. 3 weeks ago, I paid for a 3-day advanced survival course with Marcus Webb. He said he had military experience and TV credits. The online reviews were perfect. We met at a remote trailhead. No one else was enrolled. "Small class means better safety," he said, and asked to check gear. He switched my phone to airplane mode to save battery and kept my locator beacon to log the serial. We hiked 6 miles to a billabong. He unpacked laminated lesson cards, fire, water, shelter, navigation, and timed me with a small stopwatch. When I beat his 2-minute fire drill, he smiled and wrote something in a waterproof notebook. That night, we slept in debris huts. At 1:10 a.m., I woke to his light moving around my shelter. He paused and listened to my breathing. When he saw my eyes open, he gave a thumbs up and walked away. Day 2, water. He had me show filtration and boiling. Then he filled my bottle straight from the billabong. "The spot is clean," he said, "natural filtration." By noon, my stomach hurt. He called it detox. He took my pulse and wrote the time. That night, he ran a trust drill in the dark. No lamps. "Hand on my shoulder," he said. We walked. After a minute, he let go and moved behind me. "Orient to sound," he whispered close to my ear. When I flinched, he grabbed my shoulder, fast, firm, then said, "You'll panic if you don't adapt." Back at camp, he sterilized my cup, then poured water from my filter instead of the pot. The filter felt gritty and loose when he handed it back. My headache got worse. Morning, he led me to a healing spring. He gave me that water. It tasted metallic. He drank from his own flask, not from the spring. He checked his watch and wrote again. By lunch, my hands shook. He noted more times. When he stepped away, I looked in his pack. Under a map case sat small vials in foam with code labels and a printed chart. Exposure, onset, confusion, motor. Many initials, notes like S9 recovered after vomiting, a just mix. Last column, disposition. I closed the pack. He returned and stared. Curiosity kills, he said softly. Tonight we push. Dinner was 2 bowls from the same pot. Mine was darker and smelled off. He watched me lift the spoon. When he checked the fire, I dumped most behind a log. By midnight, I was weak and dry. He sat beside me, counting and writing. 0041 tremor, 0105 slurred speech, 0128 unsteady. When I tried to stand, he steadied me like a kind teacher, then moved my arm to see how much I could hold myself up. He walked to his tarp. I crawled after and opened a dry bag. Inside were ID copies, forum posts he wrote as fake students, and Polaroids, smiling people at trailheads. Later, hammocks with shapes inside. Later, empty hammocks. On one photo's back, S7, heat plus raw water, day 3. He came back and reached for the bag. I ran. The bush tore my sleeves. He didn't sprint. He tracked me. I heard him on my left, calm and close. "Tom," he called, friendly again. "We do this safe, or we don't." I pulled my locator from his jacket. I'd seen him stash it earlier. It wouldn't arm, no battery. A second beacon in his medical pouch was also dead. He'd planned for this. I found a sandy bar at first light and used my signal mirror to flash the sky. I blew my whistle in 3s. Again, again. The world narrowed to wind and breath. A helicopter came. At the hospital, the doctor said I had multiple toxins, dirty water, plant toxins, and industrial solvents over 2 to 3 days. Rangers searched a second camp 2 kilometers away. They found journals, coded sheets, swapped filter parts, and videos of drills. 17 names matched missing person reports. On a fresh page, they saw a new line starting S18 TM. Real survival schools tell you what they give you, keep your locator on, and teach skills. If an instructor watches your symptom times more than your progress, leave.
You need to check out my True Rental Horror Stories video right here on the channel. These are real accounts from people who thought they were staying in safe rentals only to experience sinister outcomes.